Good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed lunchtime and that you had time to talk to many people you probably had not seen for 2 or 3 years. You've enjoyed catering from Fundación Trabalho, which is an employment or a job insertion foundation, which has been doing a very important work in recent years, a very intensive work with regards to the inclusion of people who are at risk of social exclusion. It is a project that if you can stay a few days on Wednesday after the FEBEA assembly, we have organized 2 tours and there are still some free places, and one of the tours we're gonna do is to this foundation, Formación en Trabajo. So you're welcome to join that tour. Let's start this afternoon session. It's going to be an intense afternoon with several panels, and let's start with the first conversation with Jordi Villa. He's sitting next to me. I'm going to tell you something about Jordi Villa. It's a personal story related to him. I'm from Barcelona. My parents live in a street in Barcelona called Entença Street. And when I was a child, in the building where I lived on the first floor, there was a door and it was written Ars Cooperative. I didn't have a clue about what a cooperative was or the cooperative sector. I did not know at that time that I was going to work on that professionally. And I was seeing Jordi going up and down the stairs. He was one of the first people I met working in that cooperative world. And he has been someone important in that field, and for me it continues to be a reference for me when talking about this cooperative world. For me it's a pleasure that he's here today. Jordi Villa has been one of the founders of Ars Cooperative, Ars Cooperativa, which is one of the sponsors of this event. So he's been promoting Ars Cooperative in the ethical insurance world, because you know that insurance is closely linked to financial services, and they have been doing a very important work concerning insurances. And Jordi participated in the launching of working cooperatives. He was president of the Federation of Cooperative for Employment, and he was promoting cooperatives in our territory. He promoted also the ECOS group, which is a group based in Barcelona that was born after the crisis back in 2008 with the idea of sharing resources and ideas with other cooperatives, and it's a group that is still operating and working. Jordi has been part of the Solidarity Economy Network, and in 2015 he moved or started working in the political world, and he was the commissioner for social and solidarity economy for 2 years, what Álvaro Porros is doing now, at a time when Barcelona Council created the pillars concerning solidarity and social economy. So he was one of the first promoting this activity in Barcelona City Council. So he was someone involved in the development of solidarity and social policies. In 2021, so a year ago, he was appointed again president or chairman of FEDS, which is a platform of all kind of organization that have been promoting ethical finance in Catalonia. So he's been working on social and ethical finances as well as solidarity finances. So he has been working for many, many years in those fields. He is a reference for many people. He's got an extensive experience, and we were talking this morning about transformative economies, and we thought that it was important to hear from the social and solidarity economy, to reflect on what can be the challenges and we have with regards to transformative economies. Jordi Villa, thank you very much for being here, and without further ado, I'll give you the floor. Thank you, Jordi. It's a little bit hot in here, so allow me to take out the jacket. As you can hear, I'm talking in Catalan. Don't worry. I'm gonna continue speaking in Catalan. In a context, in this ethical finance, it's a sector that promotes, defends ecosystems in all its types. It is obvious and coherent from my point of view that because we are in Barcelona, which is the capital of Catalonia, where the official language is Catalan, I think that it's completely normal if I speak Catalan here, because the language is part of this diverse and cultural ecosystem. So thank you very much for understanding that I'm gonna speak in Catalan and understanding from different point of view. I'm the chairman of FED, so I'm gonna speak in Catalan, and I'm trying to speak at a normal pace because I know I'm being interpreted into different languages.
Poso en marxa el cronòmetre.
I'll try to manage the time I've been given in an efficient way. Jordi is sitting close to me because he knows me, and if I'm too long, Jordi is going to keep an eye on me and tell me to stop.
No s'ha penjat, això.
Ara haurà de dinar.
Anem a dinar.
Ha estat breu, no?
Ja està. Bueno, no us preocupeu. Perquè ho tenim previst o no?
Sí.
El que et vaig enviar, Sí? Bueno, no és imprescindible.
Well, the presentation, it's not vital that you see it on the screen.
Sí. Trobàs FEBEA 2305-2022. Està o en PDF o està en PowerPoint, que us vagi mirant. Una de les experiències importants en el meu periple.
One of the important experiences for me in my trajectory had to do with the need not to think that everyone understands the same when I'm referring to something. And this is why I'm used to explain always what's my starting point when I'm making a presentation. I don't want to think that if we talk about transformative economy or ethical finances, we talk about the same. When we talk about social and solidarity economy, that we all understand the same. And I'll try to briefly tell you about the perception we have when we talk about transformative economy, the starting point, some questions I think we have to ask ourselves concerning the social and solidarity economy, and a proposal to intervene in order to move to a plural and transformative economy.
No sé, s'ha quedat penjat això aquí. Apuntar,
Ara.
Molt bé. Vale. O sigui, haig d'apuntar cap als ordinadors. Clar, ell ho deia. Molt bé.
We talk from this social and solidarity economy in order to adapt it or to widen it to the transformative economies. Álvaro Porro and Rubén Suriñac one day gave us what you can see on the screen. We have more reduced dynamics from there to the mainstream. We had here different experiences of transformative economies. And I think it's important to share with you this, what you can see on the screen, because it's important to see that it refers to diversity when talking about transformative economies, to diversity. And if we take into account this diversity of transformative economies, which can talk about feminist economy, solidarity economy, social and institutionalized economies, third sector, degrowth, all this has to do with those dynamics of transformative economies. All this create an ecosystem that can be a benchmark for the transformation of economy. So the ethical economies are very diverse, but when we talk about transformative economies, well, the ecosystem is very diverse too. And here there is a complementarity. There are many initiatives in these different sectors. We will have experiences coming from the ethical financing that can support initiative and projects which are mainstream, and others that can be less mainstream experiences, but that can take into account these complementary elements. So Álvaro Porro and Rubén Suriñac talk about criteria. They have to develop a conceptual framework, a paradigm. They must have a social movement approach, and it's a new way of doing economy. This would be the three different criteria that could be implemented to these transformative economies experiences. When I was asked to talk about what the ethical finances system could do with regards to transformative experiences or economy, there were two approaches. One approach regarding the amount of products related to financing. That would be a technical approach talking about products, and this morning we heard about several products here in Barcelona. It's a city that it's committed to have several products in order to face the financing of projects. That could be an approach. And the other approach, which is the one I'm going to deal with, it's a socio-political approach. The ethical finance systems with regards to transformative economies have a key role to develop linked to the idea of sharing belonging, sharing a will to transform the system, the economic system. So what I'm going to deal with will deal with this financing system. A starting point, we are in the middle of systemic crisis. It's not a cyclical market crisis. We can see it in the financial, energy, ecological, and social markets, and we are witnessing a high risk of collapse of our system. So, systemic crisis, risk of collapse. This is the starting point. Two main challenges: to reduce poverty inequalities between populations, gender, and class, and stop the ecological crisis. Or, if we accept that we are in the middle of systemic crisis, the measures we have to foster from the social and solidarity economy are measures oriented to the transformation of our socio-economical model, but from a structural point of view. Those structural measures could be summarized, and they deal with everything we need to foster this eco-social transition. And here there are two people I would like to refer to. Yayo Herrero says that the sense of community and politics is to protect vulnerability. And this vulnerability means to self-organize, but it needs the involvement of public policies. And I insist in this double approach because, as we are going to see, we are going to talk about the political dimension of ethical finances. A political dimension which is very much needed if we understand that what we are doing from the ethical finances system in this social and solidarity economy is a kind of politics which is needed in order to build alternatives. And the other person I would like to refer is Jordi Garcia Jané, a good friend. And he recently said that one of the main goals are the ones you can see, and I'm not gonna go into detail. The challenges, the goals are when we have a proposal for a development of sustainable goals, we have to use this proposal to ask authorities to fulfill all these sustainable development goals. And we say that, taking into account that sustainable development goals right now are only a goodwill statement. But the United Nations have formulated these goals and we ask authorities to fulfill them. And what's even more relevant about what Jordi Garcia says, he says that we can foster an influence area. And when I reflect on what I do, I think that sometimes I might be a little bit of naive. Cultural influence, cultural impact with regards to the financial system, to the population, to the society. I think that the work we can do from social and solidarity economy is important because we can create self-governed, self-managed communities that can implement a kind of intervention that goes back to the original meaning of economy, which is not only be centered in the market and in the exchange of goods, in exchange of money, but economy understood as having all we need to cover our needs. And those kind of collective experiences can be replicated. The third slide, the starting point, would refer to something that might seem very simple, basic, with regards to the development of the social and economic and solidarity economy and the ethical finances. And its persistence, because for many years in the sector of ethical finances, we identified what we needed to do in terms of political proposal and in terms of belonging to the social and solidarity economy. And here you can see, and it's not an extensive summary, this Cristina de la Cruz and Pedro Sacia wrote a book years ago, and they talk about ethical financing as a tool for the political action and the right to credit, the access to credit. And they said from this approach we can consider ethical banking as part of the proposal of the solidarity economy. The ethical finance system, the ethical banking, is part of this social and solidarity economy. And I'm not the only one who says that. Cristina de la Cruz and Pedro Sacia says that. And Ramon Garcia 10 years ago wrote an article, a paper saying that ethical finances must be a tool to build a social and economic model which is an alternative to the hegemonic model. Ethical finances must be a means to transform society, to be at the service of people and distribute in a fair way the wealth, and taking into account social and environmental criteria to do that. And he added that only the practical implementation of these criteria will mean that this ethical finance can be an intermediary tool to transform finances or financing. So here you have examples of other people that support what I wanted to tell you. The ethical finance system ethical banking, it's a reality. And luckily, we have organizations like FEBEA that make it obvious, despite all shortcomings, all weaknesses that we can have. We have to communicate better. It's been said this morning. However, I think that we should ask ourselves several questions in order to move on. And here you have three possible questions. I'm just gonna mention them. I'm not gonna answer to those questions, but I'm ready from our organizations. FITS, born in Catalonia, but with will or with we want to work and talk with other partners throughout the world. I think there is a lack or not enough, the feeling of belonging is not strong enough, because when we show our project of ethical finance or social insurance, do we make it clearly? Do we present ourselves as a socio-political transforming stakeholder agent? Do we have a shared narrative concerning the socio-economic transformation, or we simply present ourselves as a mere tool that allow us to move towards more decent capitalism? Sarkozy mentioned something like that in after the crisis of 2008. Are we talking about a better use, giving a better use to money? Or are we talking about projects or activities that have to do with environment or ecological projects? The environmentalism, ecology, probably you know the difference. It refers whether these are mitigation actions or if we take into account environment in order to transform things. Do we support only mitigation projects? When we talk about transformative economies, we were referring to the third social sector that develops from the non-profit questions that have to do to the support of groups of population who are at risk. Our ethical finance system is only oriented to mitigation measures. Third question. Do we use a socio-political strategy, or there is a trend to only talk about commercial strategy? Do we compete or do we cooperate, work together with other operators? When I was showing the first slide, I wanted to show that it could be an opportunity for additional offers. What does it make sense to talk about traditional competition between our realities and projects? Is a question that we have to ask ourselves. When we perform operational management, do we go beyond a commercial strategy? I'm not questioning here the need we have as organization, as projects in the framework of ethical finances, that we have to have sustainable realities, and what we do has to be sustainable, but the criteria are not the same as conventional systems. This morning we were talking about citizens' economy, and for me it's important that companies are also citizens in the sense that the generation of surplus is not just an economic surplus, but the surplus has a social aspect. It has to be also not just economic, financial, but social. It has to do the surplus with people. This ethical finance system belongs to the social and solidarity economy, and it has to be able to interact with this social and solidarity economy. And that means that companies that are part of the transformative economies have to be part of the process as well as authorities. We proposed several policies from the Barcelona City Council back in 2015. It's what you can see on the screen. And this provides us a framework. Here you can see the social dimension, the will to transform, to move towards economies that have criteria of sustainability, social criteria, so criteria to foster the change and allow us also to change, to transform the structure.
Es correspondria amb aquesta
So this will correspond to the surface that you see here. From eco-social transition perspective, this will not be possible without the support of productive economy, real economy, the one we often mention when we speak the ethical finance system, and of reproductive economy, the importance of care, and also the importance of feminist contributions to all the development of an economic activity which is structurally transforming and without the support of the different criteria of the ecological economy. So I leave it here. I have already mentioned, and I won't repeat it, that this intersection among the different fields of economic activity, we can count on citizen companies associated to this triple benefit to which I was referring.
El sistema de finances ètiques.
The ethical finance system as a component which is apparently impossible to separate from social and solidary economy has to play an important role, claiming the ethical finance systems as a social transforming practice. Why? Because either because of its functioning or related to what supports from the point of view of financial tools contributes to recover the social dimension of economy. It also contributes to developing, I have a maximum of 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, to develop different ways of relating to others from a non-capitalist perspective. Allow me this anecdote. When our cooperative project was starting, we found ourselves under circumstances in which we say, can you imagine the look we had? I'm speaking about 30, 40 years ago. My hair was not white then. And they told us, don't forget your company's business. And we told them, we know, but we are cooperative industries or companies. And here we had to fight and discuss related to the fact that the business model of a project cannot be or do not have to be the same of the logics of functioning of the company. Bringing into practice alternative values. Remember when I was mentioning Ramon Gaseo before, the meaning of our projects of ethical finance is the fact that the values of solidary economy are carried out into action. Another aspect which is very important, in my opinion, from the point of view of ethical finance and related to the support it provides, have to deploy a strategy of reappropriation of public space. I used to have a good friend who told me, well, unfortunately, when we speak about what is public, we think about the physical space in the street or institutional love. And he reminded me that public comes from people, and a public space from the point of view of an economic activity is related to that economic activity which is born from self-organization at the root. So we have to claim from the point of view of ethical finance and this type of economy the importance of what is public related to grassroots initiatives which are born in order to solve this type of problems, grassroots problems. If we build an economic democracy, if we are part of a wider process of democratic radical movement, we are building an alternative economic sector, and we are also building a social market. So more or less this is like a summary, a synthesis, and I'm going to go into detail of each one of the concepts that I would like to tell you. I won't be able to go in detail into each one of them, but let me highlight some of the most important aspects. When we say that this ethical finance system and solidary economy contributes to recover the human dimension of the economy, I'm thinking about the boost and the consideration of the reproductive rationality of life. I met Mr. Herrero not long ago, and without knowing each other, we were talking about the reproductive rationality of life. He belongs to the feminist economies, and I have just acquired some knowledge about an Argentinian economist called José Luis Goracha, very important. So we're not pronouncing a discourse rather only related to a more coherent use of money, but we're rather developing from our perspective and related to what we are supporting, the boost of reproductive rationality of life. So we are thinking about ways, non-capitalist socializing ways of organizing our life. I'm looking for several partners. I would like to greet Hugo, who used to say that the value of money is not in money in itself, but the people who use it and the relations it favors and the common good it creates. Totally agree. In this sense, I would like to mention that whatever is boosted by the finance of ethical finance and social economy is what we consider non-reformist trends or radical trends and reforms, which are, let's break away from this form revolution dichotomy, this dichotomy which talks to us about reforms or revolution associated to the Winter Palace, Rome. No, we, from the system of ethical finance and also social and solidary economy, as much as we can develop our activities associated to some values, alternative values, non-hegemonic ones, are creating non-reformist reforms and radical reforms. And we are placing importance in positive processes. The way we do things is as important or even more important than what we do. So in this sense, the relationship dimension favoring this system of ethical finances and favoring good practices in social economy are fundamental and related to everything we do. Alternative values. Let me highlight that applying these values allows us to generate spaces of transforming knowledge, and they revital the entity as a space of social transformation. We don't want disasters. We want to be realistic. We want a critical evaluation of the social, economic situation in which we are. But we have to take into account that we favor transforming learning spaces, and the company or entity, in a wider sense, can become spaces of social transformation. I will conclude with this slide and the next one very quickly to tell you that from the claim that it's important to promote another type of company, another type of economy, post-capitalist one, if you pay close attention, you will realize that I consider myself anti-capitalist, because capitalism, for me, and the scale of values is leading us to a structural crisis such as the one we're going through. But I don't want to remain just by saying I'm anti-capitalist just because I claim myself. I say I'm against capitalism. When we started our project, we told ourselves, let's start this cooperative project in order to build the life and society that we consider would be better. And this is what we are doing. And this is what we are fighting for. Totally essential within the strategy of the system of ethical finance and social and solidarity economy, the promotion of the construction of the social market, which is a huge challenge. We are functioning within a market system, conventional market system. So when we speak about social market, we're speaking about production of goods and services with social and ecological conditions, and we're speaking about responsible consumption, that whole of society which considers that its contribution to this change, structural change, requires being closer to goods and services which are sustainable from an environmental point of view, and a strategic perspective which is essential. And let me finish by telling you that it has a social and political dimension, the fact that the ethical finance system and the whole of transforming economies are oriented and related to an explicit strategy of support towards the deployment of social transition, promotion of socially useful productive activities, changes in the model of consumption in order to make it more responsible and sustainable, and finally, something which we consider very important. We are speaking about the need to coordinate the different projects of the ethical finance systems. FEBEA is one of them, and I'm sure that there are other aspects which have been diagnosed and that we have to evolve and improve. It is equally important that the different experiences of the ethical finance systems are articulated and related to the networks of solidarity economy, not only as a formal membership, but as participation and identification with the description of the transforming activities. There is an affirmation which I met not long ago, born from the social movement 17, 18 years ago, which said that we cannot do it alone. If we consider that the system of ethical finances can play a transforming role from a structural point of view, we have to be able to build alliances, and these alliances are built bottom up and they are built from the belonging of these ethical finance systems to the network of social and solidarity economy. I'm happy because I have used my time now, and I remain available as president of FEDs of different entities. Well, in any case, thank you very much for your kind attention.
Molt bé, Jordi.
Well, thank you very much, Jordi. As Jordi was saying, if anybody from the public would like to ask a question or make a comment, you're welcome. I wanted to ask you a question, and I think that the challenge that you are mentioning, being able to join the dialogue as an alliance, I think that all the ethical finance entities believe in these transforming economies. But it is true that establishing these spaces of cooperation, well, makes it difficult sometimes. And sometimes it's difficult because in the end, an entity makes it difficult. Sometimes when we speak about this, there is this vision that money belongs to power, and a vision of collaboration, and maybe within these dynamics. It is also true that although there is this feeling of belonging, it's difficult to articulate this relationship in the fieldwork of ethical finance. Sometimes it is difficult to find the voices of the social economy in our assemblies or spaces of cooperation. So I would like to ask you, knowing that we share this vision, in what way we can articulate better without all these prejudices when we have entities that are just lending money. Well, in today's conference, I was mainly thinking about what I consider that I could keep doing by increasing the system of ethical finances. I wasn't thinking about what the rest of the social economy could do. And I think that we have to keep improving the different perspectives of ethical finance, consumption, distribution of social economy, and keep improving all of us without exception. And within these improvements, I have to recognize, as we were saying today, that at least in Catalonia or the Spanish state, the reality of social economy is micro, very small. And there is some conditioning elements related to the experience of everything which is related to the finance system, associated to the high economic and financial risk, which is very important, which mean that, if you allow me a little anecdote, you probably have heard me before, when we started our project 40 years ago, well, we were coming from the social movements in a very significant way, ecologist one, not only from the anti-authoritarian left, etc. And we were criticized because we have become petit bourgeois, because we were worried about the economic activity of the companies. What does it mean? It means that somehow this type of discourse and narration is kept, and this creates a certain dysfunction as per the relations with the ethical finance system, although we belong to the same system. And there is another factor, which is an aspect that I have not mentioned, but I think it's very important, and it's the fight that we have to carry out from the system of ethical finance against the instrumental use of conventional banking, of everything which is related to the social and ecological world. And in this sense, we have to recognize the actions of some sectors of social and solidarity economy related to foundations of the conventional banking entities. Therefore, there's a lot of work to do ahead of us, and those of us who have a certain historical perspective, I would dare to say that 30 years ago we could not imagine that today would be where we are, but without losing sight of the fact that the whole of social and solidary economy of the ethical finance, we are still one or two drops in the ocean, but we are here and we are committed people, committed with our projects. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if there are any further questions or comments. Otherwise, nothing? Okay. I don't know if there is a microphone. Good afternoon, and thank you very much, both Jordis. And thank you very much also to FEBEA for organizing this talk. I think it's very interesting, today's activity. Let me introduce myself, Nadia Lotfi, doctor in economy, and also professor at the Autonomous University. I'm also the president of the Cooperative of Islamic Financial Services here in Catalonia. I would be interested, Mr. Jordi, because we've already had many shared spaces with Jordi from FEBEA before. We have shared different spaces, and I'm speaking as defender of the Islamic economy or Islamic finances, and just by talking about different spaces that we had shared before, I am becoming more and more convinced of the fact that Islamic finances are also part of social and solidary economy and Islamic finances, because in the end we are defending the same social economy, responsible finances under ethical principles, and in the end we are all in the same boat. So here in Spain, as the Europeans are aware of, in France there is Islamic finances, in Belgium, all over Europe there is financial finances and Islamic economy. We know that in Europe it already exists, it does exist also, it's a niche, not so big, but it's a niche which is growing and becoming a reality. And here in Catalonia we are also stepping over real economy through the model of Islamic finances. Let me just express that we would be delighted to be part of FEDS because we are also involved in it. We think we are following the same path, and therefore we are available in order to defend a transforming economy and finances, which for sure will be useful to people, not as numbers only. And therefore, it's my humble statement. And let me thank all the organizers and also the speaker and the moderator. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Nadia. We take note of your proposal and idea, and I'm sure that from FEDS, because you've been working together and collaborating very closely. Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. We haven't seen each other for months now. I'm very happy to greet you, and I coincide with you. Islamic finances are a unique proposal, but a proposal which is part of this type of economies. And your proposal of joining as members of FEDS is dedicated to the promotion of the ethical finance systems, and of course you will be welcome. Okay, well, thank you very much. We are running a bit late. Let me just close this keynote section, thanking Jordi once again. It's been a pleasure listening to you, And the world is complicated also for ethical finances, so we are always thinking about strategies, tactics, how we do it, how do we move forward, how to do it. But speeches like your speech helps us to stop looking down at our feet, not to stumble, and sometimes stumble and looking further. So thank you very much, and we go into next section.
Ah, sí, que va. Vosaltres.
Hi havia algun més a la taula? Raimon? El Raimon. Perfecte.
És que bé.
Però sí que tenim, i el Jordi. Jordi. Si posem les quatre cadires...
Si vols, mira, fem per l'ordre d'intervenció.
Començarem per tu. Bueno, jo tenia Jordi, Raimon, vale? Pues posem les quatre així.
No sé pas. ¿Sí?
Bueno, pues seguimos avanzando.
Let's start the last roundtable before the wrap up and conclusions. And I think that now we're gonna see practical experiences that are gonna help us to make more visible the good practices of ethical finances by the organization who take part in the roundtable. Daniel Sorosal mentioned something in a recent interview. He said that what differentiates ethical finances is to think of projects as not a mere transaction, but rather as a process, support to the project so they can grow. And ethical finances find or come up with other partners and other tools to use. Jordi Villa, in his excellent presentations, was talking about the support from ethical finances to self-government, self-managed communities or groups. And I think the experiences we are about to hear are going to show that ethical finances are more than a transaction. They're mean support. We have representative of SAIR Foundation who's going to talk about their experience in the creation of investment funds which are non-speculative. We have Fundación Finanzas Éticas who's going to talk about its experience in terms of training and management of certain funds supporting entrepreneurship and collaboration with public authorities. COP57 is going to talk about access to credit, and they have experience in the buying of land. And we have a representative of Ars Cooperative to talk about a sector that offers a transformative vision, and I'm referring to insurances, ethical insurances. And in order to move on, let's start with the intervention of Miguel Linde, who's the director of Fundación Seira. Thank you. Can you hear me? First of all, I'm gonna apologize because I'm not an expert in communication, and it's a way of relaxing a little bit. First of all, thank you to all speakers, but particularly I would like to start by saying that it's been a pleasure for me, and I'm surprised when seeing the amount of things I've learned today. I've been working in ethical finances and social and solidarity sector for 8 years, in finances for a lot more, but I've learned a lot today. So thank you to everyone, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk about the project. So Fundación Ceira is a tool that comes from the Federation of Cooperatives of Employment in Catalonia. And it's devoted to increase the social and cooperative economy at the level of Catalonia when we talk about finance and investment. I'm not going to mention where we come from because I would be giving more information than needed, and I don't have much time, and I would like to talk about the tools we're using. But if someone is interested in knowing more about the foundation itself or the origins, you can check online and you'll find lots of information. So the Federation of Cooperatives of Work or Employment in Catalonia are the starting point of this foundation. And it started in 2008, but in 2019 something happened. That was that we asked Pompeu Fabra University to produce a report where it was said, or we wanted to know the challenges facing the cooperativism from a financial point of view. And I'm gonna summarize the report. There were some conclusions mentioned in the report, and it was that the report said we can conclude that 89% of cooperatives of work, of employment in Catalonia, 89% in Catalonia share three common features. Things that has been mentioned by Jordi Villa and other speakers. Three features. The turnover is less than 500,000 euros, so we're talking about micro companies. All of them have own resources, capital plus resources less than 30,000 euros, and all of them, these 30,000 euros, which are their own resources, account to, that means that they are in debt. What are the consequences stemming from this report made by the university? That means that they have problems to access financing, and they have difficulties to access to investment. They are in debt and they are small, they cannot grow organically, and they have difficulties in accessing financing investment because they are cooperatives, associations, foundations, or non-profit organization. The investment funds, they cannot access to those investment funds, even the non-impact investment funds. And we know that the social and solidarity economy, from what's been said today and what we know, it's very important for environment and for society in order to change, to transform society. The same report mentioned several recommendations or possible solutions. And what they said is we need a bigger cooperation between the public and the private sector, and it's been mentioned today. Álvaro Porro has mentioned, particularly the first panel, Maravillas has also mentioned, and Cristina. We've been saying that it's very important that the public sector cooperates with the private in order to get access to more investment. The second thing is that the criteria concerning investment should be modified, particularly the impact investment funds. If we see the portfolio of the impact investment funds, we see that those portfolios invest mainly in certain kind of companies that don't belong to the social and solidarity economy. That they need support would be the third feature, because these organizations are small and they need counseling, they need support to improve communication and other aspects. And another recommendation was that it would be a good thing to create a secondary market of bonds. So if we issue bonds and we open a secondary market, this could help those companies. And I move to the last part. From the SEIDA Foundation, we try to widen cooperativism, and we try to, on the basis of these recommendations, try to find institutional partners representative of the social and solidarity economy, and we have created 2 tools for investment within the social and cooperative economy, and exclusive for the social and cooperative economy. It has a patient capital. These 2 tools have this patient capital, with these values of cooperations that have been mentioned throughout the day, and to mention how these vehicles of investment work. One has been created, and it's called Mesa Spice, and it's been created because there was a need by management organizations that have to do with education, personal care, health care, with supporting people at risk of social exclusion. The investment fund reduces the capital needed in order to buy or promote a property in order to manage the activity. And how does it do it? The investment fund buys the building, the property, and it gives it for a long time, for maybe 20 years. It leases for 20 years to the company, social company that it's managing the activity, so it can carry out the activity in the building. And the other tool or vehicle is to increase the level of capitalization of the entities of the social and cooperative economy. And that means that we invest in long term, up to 10 years, by means of loans, participatory loans, by these social enterprises, with the same values of these companies, because what we want is to increase the level of capitalization, and that it's easier for these companies to perform, to carry out their activities. And very often these companies collaborate, work with us. It's been a pleasure to share these ideas and these tools with you. Thank you.
Gracias, Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel, for keeping it short. Jordi Banes is next. He's the director of the Foundation Finanzas Éticas. Thank you, Sara. In this panel about experiences, we want to present practices that include credit but that go beyond credit. And we would like to talk about several tools we are promoting in several areas. As an ethical bank, you know that the foundation is part of Banca Ética. We were one of the promoters of the creation of FIARE Banca Ética in Spain. And we really agree with the approach Jordi Villa has mentioned. We have a bank, we have a tool, but we are not only a bank. We are a social movement that uses a series of tools. In the financial sector. So the first idea was to create FIARE Banca Ética in Spain, and once the tool was consolidated, was created, we wanted to go beyond, taking into account that if we want to transform the whole economy, we must be part of many other movements and proposals in the economic sector. And this is why culture for us is very important. And we think that we have to change the cultural paradigm. And one of the first things that consider in order to transform things is that to work on education of citizens. We see that the proposals of social and solidarity economy, when students finish their studies at the university, they don't know what these are. Maybe if they have studied economics, it's been mentioned. So we wanted to get to universities and educational spaces. We are not just a bank. We are part of this cultural fight. And we have several training programs at the University of Barcelona, University of Jaén, and University of Pompeu Fabra, and we are widening and enlarging every year. We have around 200 students per year that are studying, and studying seriously is not only talks here and there. We have finally found a channel to get into the university and really provide training, a training that allows students to get a certification in ethical finance. And we've seen that it's impossible to talk about ethical finances only without talking about other things. We have to talk about what transformative economies are. So these educational spaces allow us to establish the first seed to wake up interest among students. Two students from the environmental studies of the University of Barcelona were here this morning, and we have started a campaign to petition the European Union that the taxonomy of sustainable activities do not include the nuclear energy. They are studying environmental studies, and this topic had not reached the university. Now we have started working with the students in order to petition the European Union. So it's not only a theoretical approach, but we are also practicing with the students what this ethical finance. So we are providing this training at the university level, but not just at the university level, at the secondary education level with Sofia and the colleagues from FET. We are working in a network Redefes is a network of teachers from all over Spain that are working on tools so that they can explain ethical finances in their secondary schools. So we can provide the students with tools to understand ethical finances. It's working very well. We met recently. We have more than 70 educational tools or resources that are published in our website. Another thing we are promoting is research. You know, research in ethical finance is very limited. We have many practices, experiences to explain, but we have to do more. And we are working with Fondazione Finanza Etica in a report that we produce every year in sustainable finances in the area of financing the social and solidarity economy. So the research and generation of knowledge is very important for us. And we have a portal to disseminate ethical finance that I invite you to visit. And we would like to have more visibility at an international level because, and that means that we are open to collaboration with other partners. Activism, it's also important. Generation of knowledge and also social movements and we want activists to know that ethical finance are supporting them. So we support campaigns, and one of the things which we have been doing is to participate with the shareholders for change in the boards of several multinational companies where we see that there are polemical actions that take place. We're talking about energy. We've been in Endesa, and Repsol, Indra, the weapon sector, with the idea of try to change things. We know that we are still only a few, but relevant, and we want to pollute in a positive way to the rest of the economy so there is a bigger awareness about the change we need. And another aspect we're working on is the creation of non-banking tools complementary to the financing provided by FIARE, Banca Etica, and it's similar to what's done in Fundación Seira. And in this case, we are working together. So there's the space of coordination that had been mentioned exists. We are targeting micro cooperative. We have an agreement with the Barcelona City Council. We started last week. We had a collaboration project on guarantees that has been transformed on a social impact fund for those companies that deals with insertion, so we can become their partners that are going to help develop self-financing, the need that Miguel was explaining. Sometimes there is an excessive indebtedness or excessive debt, and it's true that the level of debt is bigger in these social and solidarity companies. Sometimes the partners of or the members of the cooperative has a kind of debt that it's a patient debt. Yeah, the level of debt is higher, but there are more members. So we want to go a step forward, become a partner. We are going to support during a certain amount of time, and then we facilitate that new members come in. We are doing this with the city of Barcelona. We started doing with the municipality of Arbúcies in the province of Girona, and with the help of the Ministry for Employment, we have started a small fund with our own money. It's initial capital to launch a fund of impact called La Colmena at the Spanish level, and it's published in our website. It seems like I've talked about many things. It's always at micro scale, but we think that ethical finances must really be comprehensive proposals with the aim of transforming society. Thank you. Thank you, Jordi. With these two interventions, we clearly see the practical aspect of the roundtable. The title of our conference is Credit and Beyond, and we understand why beyond credit. And we will continue with the experience of COP57. Raymond Gassiot is linked to the cooperative, COP57, and it's gonna tell us another, or give us another example coming from the ethical finance. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say that we are really proud to be for the first time in a face-to-face meeting or assembly of FEBEA. Jordi Villa has mentioned some concepts that I mentioned in a paper that, and these concepts come from collective work done by COP57 in all its years of work. I'm gonna first of all talk about what COP57 is, how we work, and then give examples of innovative practices in financial service provision. We are a cooperative of financial services, solidarity services. When we explain who we are, we say that we are not a bank, although we provide financial services, and our services are different. We also say that we understand that financial activity is a tool and not a goal in itself. For us, this is a key concept. For us, it's a tool to provide resources, financial resources to social enterprises, and using these transformative economies. And this is very important to remember. And the financial services are just a tool, not a goal. What are our main features? How do we operate? First of all, we don't have customers. We have members, partners. So we provide a service. We are a cooperative, and we provide services to our partners, our members. That means that all the capital we manage is the money comes from our members, and we use it to lend this money to provide financial services to our members, to our partners, who basically are people who give their savings to COP57 or entities of social economy that can give money, or very often they borrow money in order to carry out their projects. So we have a closed and self-managed market. All resources we use are resources coming from our members, and we decide how to manage this with our members. We are self-regulated and self-managed. We have a cooperative law, and we do everything we do by agreement. And for us, it's very important to determine, for instance, the interest rate. We don't index to the Euribor or to the indexes that we cannot control. We decide, we agree on the indexes we are going to use, and we decide that on our assembly, what kind of financial products we have. We all decide what kind of products, and we adjust them according to the needs our members and partners have. What guarantee systems do we have? Well, we decide. about those processes. We want to have processes that are adjusted to the needs of our members. And we do that in a way that takes into account the main features of the territories where we work. We have to be close to our members because they are the end receivers of our services. So we have territorial branches that allow us to provide our services in close contact with our members. For instance, if we grant a loan in Sevilla, it will be done from the local branch. We have a self-management system based on local branches distributed throughout the territory of Spain. And we have developed a system of financial service provision that we have adapted to what to the needs of the social economy organizations which are the members of our institution. We give loans for investment projects at mid-term, and according to the needs, we have widened the range of financial products we provide our members. Different kinds of loans to finance cash flow needs. We saw that there was a need to finance the contributions to social capital of people who are members of the cooperative and who need to capitalize their projects. There is a lack of capital, as it has been mentioned, so we wanted to finance this lack of capital of our members. We have developed other kinds of tools. For instance, when we started to develop this model of co-housing, this cooperative housing that Sonia was mentioning at the beginning, there was a legal gap or a legal uncertainty. We promoted, we supported the two first projects financed in Barcelona, and we wanted to do that because we believed in this model of cooperative housing, and we have developed other kinds of services according to the needs of our members, and if we have the capability to or the capacity to develop that. We have 1,000 social and solidarity organizations. We have many people contributing with their saving, and to give you some more figures, last year we granted loans for an amount of 23 million euros, and now 50 million in contributions, and out of which 31 million are alive loans, and we also buy assets, and we have a policy of common land. And if you allow me, I'm going to continue for a little bit more, some experiences of innovation that we have been developed lately. As I was saying, as Miguel said, there are social and solidarity organizations that need to strengthen their own resources, and we developed a type of tool that is similar to the concept of a participatory loan, but we call it loans, permanent loan. There is that means that pay an interest in order to have access to that capital, and the organization can pay back when it can pay back this. There is an agreement between us and the organization. we have also developed what we call buying assets to put it or to offer them to the social and solidarity organizations. We have developed what we call a community land, to buy land, to buy plots in order to avoid speculation and to give it or to use it for social projects with a community approach. It's similar to what's called community land trust. And we have two experiences. One in Valls, a city in Catalonia, downtown, in order to avoid the degradation of the downtown area, and a rural property in Collserola, near Barcelona, in order to avoid the land speculation and to preserve rural activity in that spot near Barcelona. We have also bought other kind of assets, so the social and solidarity organizations can use them, and they don't have the financial capacity to buy those assets. Another type of thing we are doing, which we consider is innovative, has to do with the syndication loans in order to finance housing, with a foundation devoted to housing, and that allows us to reach higher volumes that we could reach. When we say syndicate operation, I'm not referring to coordinate. It means a single lease contract provided by two organizations that have agreed on doing that. We are going to reach another syndicated loan between three entities. One is Fundación Seider, to finance a project that has to do with energy transitions. So three organizations agreed to grant a loan to an organization to perform a project. We're talking about 1 million euros. So this idea of three organizations agreeing, we think that this has lots of potential, and it's an example to follow. Something that we have been working on a lot is the risk sharing. That's very important. We've been working on that with other organization that belongs to the solidarity and social economy, particularly public organizations. We had an agreement, and Alvaro Porro mentioned it because it was with the Barcelona City Council, and it's been very interesting, very useful. We have carried out other initiatives with other public authorities. We accessed the Easy Guarantee line several years ago, and with public money, we are creating this multiplying effect, which has been mentioned this morning. Bernard has mentioned it, this multiplying effect from 1 to 10 with public money, and we have gone one step further, because with public money we can really have a multiplying effect, and we are making the most of public money to share risk and multiply the financing of social and solidarity economy. Thank you.
Y por último, tenemos con nosotros.
Thank you very much, and we counted on the participation of Alfonso Bolado, but he has not been able to be here, so thanks for the participation of Javier Gomez from the Bears Cooperative, and thank him because he has been able to join us and has made the effort to be here last minute.
En primer lugar, agradecer.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank FEBEA for the possibility to be here with you. As my colleague has said, Alfonso is not here for personal reasons. I was having lunch 3 hours ago and preparing me to be sitting down there, but Alfonso has helped me a lot because he has sent the presentation in English. I don't speak English, and 2 scripts. One with the things I have to say, and another one with the things I shouldn't say. That's very helpful. Well, to us, it is very important to be here because for us and for ethical insurance system, we have 2 different challenges compared to ethics banking, internal and external challenges. So we have to be able to transform ourselves, we want to change society, but also internally we have to be able to convince ethical finance that the ethical financial system can transform the society. And this is not so simple. And here we have a pioneer who is Jordi Dia, who is an expert at the different efforts that have to be made in order to achieve this objective. We started 40 years later to see, and then we have some tangible results here. Especially satisfactory because these are not forms in which we are usually participating. Alfonso has told me to tell you that we are not sponsors. I'm saying that also. So we're going to skip the first slide. And here what we have tried to do is on the one hand to explain what is ours, and on the other to explain what is this brokerage systems. I will tell him, I will have done the opposite first. I will have explained this sector and then ours, but no problem, we understand each other. Ours, from a technical point of view, is a brokerage and consulting services, but the social and legal framework, it's a cooperative, which means a lot. And if we integrate ethical insurance, it means even more. Something of not of less importance is that we have spent 40 years in the sector, in brokerage and insurance. This is not easy at all. And I'm not saying in ethical brokerage, I'm thinking about traditional brokerage services. And it is also important that you get to know that we work on sectors such as economic cooperativism, social and cultural movements, renewable energy is the 3rd sector. Therefore, we are not brokerage and consulting services, meaning that we don't do anything for everyone. We're specialized. Something important, which I don't know whether to mention it here or no. What does it mean to be a brokerage system? Brokerage systems means that we need to have members, so insurance companies, to distribute insurance services. So we are not the end of the chain, and this is very important because everything we're going to see, unless we had strategic partners to be together, and we want to have more and more, this will be impossible. When we talk about strategic partners, we are thinking about social economy, but also within social economy, ethical banking. So in order to move forward, we need this type of banking. Obviously, recently, we have tried to develop the cooperative principle. Being a cooperative is not because Jordi Villa one day he said, what can we do in order to drive the brokerage world crazy? No, it's not that he decided to make up the cooperative. There was some guiding principles, and these guiding principles mean, especially here in Catalonia, which is what we call the history of what we call mutuas, which is like an effort between joining between cooperativism and private association. And this, which has been happening for many years, is coming back. And it's coming back strong, such as the Mutuality Federation and Federation of Cooperatives and other principles, which is the principle of responsibility, democracy, equality, and solidarity. And some of these principles, when someone is thinking about brokerage, can think, democracy, solidarity, brokerage services, this is not me. Let me tell you, it is possible. It is possible, and we have made it possible. And we are not the only ones, as you will see. So this is what I was mentioning. First, we have to understand that you know much about the banking sector, and the idea is to give you an idea of the brokerage system and why do we think that this system is within ethical finances due to some numbers. And the numbers that you see there are the ones that point to the fact why we want to talk about ethical finances without speaking about the insurance industry. It doesn't make sense. We are talking about investments of a lot of money. So 72.4% of the European GDP, and this money is invested 30% in government bonds and 70% in other products. But the last number is the one that really matters, and we are speaking in Spain. 11% of the investments of the insurance companies operating in Spain, and this is what we know, are placed in companies related to the arms industry. And this is a lot of money. What happens to the insurance sector and the user of insurances from this sector? The user of an insurance, from a car to the most complex one you can imagine, is unaware because nobody has ever explained to him what do insurance companies do with the money that one pays. When you pay for what we call an insurance bond, very few people knows what's happening to this money. With banks, we discover what was done with money with a different crisis, but as far as insurance, because it doesn't follow any cycle, when people are afraid, nobody has ever asked themselves what happens with the money I pay with my insurance. So here is the answer. 11% of what you pay of your insurance car is invested in arms. I know it can sound quite strong, but it's a reality. One of the tasks of ethical insurance is to train people, to train entities, to train associations and companies and cooperatives in that. And minimum, they should be aware of this reality. I am not following what Alfonso has told me to say. But let's go back to my statement before. Why are we different? Well, here I'm going to use some of Alfonso's words, and let me go back to mutualism or mutuality, which is an important figure. How was the insurance born? Well, there are different theories, but one says that it was at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in England, because since there was no social public provision, well, basically funds were constituted money in order to help people. And at that moment, most of the people who were unemployed were women because their husbands died at work. So different funds were created in order for people who were resourceless could be helped. With time, this became what we call mutuality. And in Catalonia, this mutuality of social characteristics, and these are non-profit organizations, and the rest are cooperative principles, especially in the field of social economy, which are not the property of ethical insurance. Social coherence, solidarity, mutuality, and community. I don't know if I'm running out of time. And all this, how can it be specified? It was specified several years ago, back in 2007, when the Observatory of Ethical Finances promoted a stamp. And there are several labels, not only in the insurance sector, but in any one. Some of these labels you can buy them, some you're awarded a specific label, and some are difficult to get. And this is one of the most difficult to get. An intermediary, a brokerage company, or an insurance company having this label is difficult. Why? Because we want to be sure and strict in time also. Meaning that you can have a specific label saying that you have some parameters and guarantees, but with time this can change. But this hallmark is different. There are some annual auditing processes and objectives of ethical criteria that maybe you don't have at the beginning, but you commit yourself to target them year after year. What can we say about this quality seal? And what is for sure that those who have this seal of quality follow important ethical criteria. First, working in ethical banking. Another one is to be absolutely transparent with their investment. Another one are the wage parameters between what we have on top and at the bottom. 501 is not the same as 351. And whoever doesn't have this seal of quality is not ethical, no. But the ones who don't have this seal of quality do not follow the criteria established by this seal. Jordi has already mentioned that before. We are seeing the greenwashing, and insurance companies is especially powerful, Now all the insurances are green, all of them. And social responsibility of the companies, etc. Well, that's not what we mean. When a company, insurance company says, look at what I do, you say yes, but tell me whatever you don't do, you could do, because otherwise you will never be awarded this label. So let me tell you that there are 10 brokerage companies having this label. So if someone is interested, you can ask us. We have mutuality of social provision, some important companies of the sector, and then brokerage companies all over Spain. And let me also say something, a couple of things that Alfonso has said and Jordi. Alfonso has always said something, which is working on the insurance sector is boring. We have to do something else. We have to train, we have to educate. And Jordi has said something very interesting. As important or more important is how we do it than what we do. Because in the end we do insurances, but it's not the same to do it one way or another. And this is the how. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
It was perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. So just by repeating this last sentence that you have pronounced, it is so important how we do it. Besides what we do, I think that many aspects have been mentioned. You have been mentioning how to develop services from the detection of specific needs. As several experiences have shown here, we have spoken about something very important that we mentioned before, accompanying process, not only a transaction, but being with, intercooperation also among different entities and sectors. We have also mentioned the cooperation among mutuality and cooperativism, cooperation between different entities. It has been mentioned several times, participating in joint projects. We have spoken about the importance of the cultural development of ethical finances, actions of education, training in different sectors. I think that this has been highlighted as something important. And Raymond has also mentioned the support to dynamic aspects, not only financial tools, but as we have said so far, the importance of working and walking together, search for services which for sure are going to be there to accompany these growth processes of the social entity processes. That's all I wanted to say, because we are out of time, but I don't want to be the only one not asking a question, but just challenge to answer very quickly. Today, during the administration roundtable, we were asking a question to the administrations about the challenges of ethical finances, and they were launching some proposals. So my question is the following about these challenges of ethical finances and also this collaboration with the administrations. What are the challenges that the sector has? in order to collaborate with other actors, public administrations and others, if you think that, well, what are the things that can be contributed to from the sector and what are the challenges that as entities of ethical finances we can move forward. I know it's a wide question, but maybe you can be very concise, and I will thank you for that. Miguel.
Sí. Bueno, gracias por la pregunta, pero
Thank you very much for your question. I'm thinking about several ideas of things that can be improved within social economy, and this is the situation of the same social economy and cooperative, given the structure of the same and the importance, and maybe the structure that we have among us. One thing which is important is to continue this cooperation, because we need to cooperate among us in order to expand, to be a good example. And it is clear that this is one of the first examples that we have, but many more things have to be done. Not only this, but beyond these events. And we have to practice it on our day-to-day activity. Many entities are doing it, but for sure we can do more. As far as the role, important role of the public administration and this tractor factor that we can have, precisely because of the capacities that we have, let me just say that one of the most important challenges is not only the political will of the public administration to develop a social and cooperative economy, but to find different processes which can be more accessible to those entities which are so small. So I'm thinking about the public administration in general. We have to find ways for these entities, and these micro entities playing such an important role can access those financing mechanisms, access to financing, because otherwise this is where we are going to remain. So we won't facilitate the political will that we have, which is to widen the importance of social and cooperative economy. Thank you, Miguel. Very concise, please. Let me tell a couple of things. One is the integrality when it comes to understanding finances. We have seen many tools, but to be able to see that finances are changing all over the world, not only from a technological point of view, but there is less spaces of intermediation and more direct contact between loan, investment and savings. So the world is changing. I think we have to be able to integrate other financial proposals, not only parting from credit, but many of the things that have been mentioned today. And the second one that we have very clear, which is the visibility of our proposals, a context where communications, companies and advertising are not paying attention. Ethical finances, economic and solidarity finances. We have to be bold, move forward, and to explain and make visible these alternatives which exist. And I think that they are the future. There is no other future than this one. Thank you, Jordi and Raimon. Yes, during several of the speeches today, we have mentioned that we are at a very complex context, and we think that for the next years, this context can become very, very complex. We're getting out of a crisis without precedents. We don't know how we are going to get out of here. We have very few references. There is a context of increase of prices due to the energy crisis, and this is related with what has been mentioned before. The sources of energy and fuel, cheap prices are being finished, exhausted, supply chains are being broken, the wars that were all over the world, and Europe is now participating at reaching the heart of Europe. We will see, but the years ahead are going to be very complex, and we are not prepared for it. We have to be able to be next to social economy and close to it, and then adapting the financial services to the needs. So it is very important to keep working on this strategy of sharing risks, not only sharing risks, but sharing investments, operations, and go deep and develop the capacity of cooperation and collaboration among different ethical finance entities, cooperatives, which are not part of ethical finances, but they can contribute because they are part of these finance movements and social economy, and of course with the public administrations. So from here, let's try to develop the maximum capacity of creativity and imagination in order to adapt financial services and see, and this is a challenge, how we can do it from the public administration point of view. Sometimes they are not following the best arguments to develop this creativity and innovation, although it is true that in some cases they are doing their best to achieve these objectives. Thank you very much, Javier. Well, now I will try to be very brief because brokerage and public sector are traditional enemies, basically because the public sector has always opted for trying to calculate how much the insurance is going to cost me. And you can find very interesting surprises, but the tenders in insurances, 100% of the points obtained are for the price. From there, for ethical insurance, it's exceptionally difficult to enter into this type of criteria, but as Jordi was saying, little by little, things can be done. Recently, a municipality close to Barcelona, Mataró, at the public tender, for the first time gave points if some of them had this ENG label. So this is the first time we see this type of clause. So we have a long way to go. And as someone has said here, there is a need of political will. I'm sure there is political will. And here we have the example of network of municipalities, of social economy, and another one is the reality that we know from the administration. And in the case of insurance companies, becomes especially serious. So I would say that the future is minimum mid-term. Very well. Well, thank you very much for your interventions, and we now give the floor to the conclusions. Thank you.
It's been a long and very, very rich day, so it's extremely difficult to conclude. But when we chose the name of the conference, this Credit and Beyond, at the time I didn't make the connection, but when I was thinking about it today, about what to say to you, it made me think of my son, who's today 14, but around 10 years ago, when he was like 3, 4, he was a big fan of, hello? Yeah. So I was referring to my son and to the name of the conference, this Credit and Beyond. My son, when he was 3, 4 years old, he was a big fan of Toy Story. And this Credit and Beyond thing made me think of Buzz Lightyear, the astronaut who goes to infinity and beyond. And in a way, to a certain extent, I'm going to focus on the beyond. We seem to live in a kind of period of permanent crisis. We went from the financial crisis, sovereign debt, economic and social crisis, post the sovereign debt crisis, a pandemic, a war, rising energy prices. I mean, the world is like doom and gloom all of a sudden. And to a certain extent, we are even ignoring the biggest of all, which is the climate change that is kind of waiting for us around the corner. We're busy with something else, but it's actually the elephant in the room. And as Peru said this morning, crisis for us is not an opportunity. These successive crises underline the crucial role of ethical financiers because each crisis increases in a way our responsibility. It puts us before a new set of challenges. And the fact that we adapt, that we reinvent ourselves, that we come up with new solutions, shows that, as Peru said, valemos la pena. We are worth it. Sounds a bit like a L'Oreal slogan, but we are worth it. And we are always up to the challenge. Not because we offer the right financial product, but because we care. Because this is not about banking. It's about how you do banking. It's not about insurance. It's about how you do insurance. It's about doing an activity in a holistic way, in a sustainable way, in a way that makes sense to people. As Janet Sanz said this morning, ethical finance makes sense because it focuses on people and the environment and in the construction of a society that is fair and sustainable. And in a world in which unchained capitalism is the most effective way of producing more and more poor people, we propose an alternative in which we give money to the possibility of making sense, putting it at the service of people, of solidarity, and of the environment. And this uniqueness makes us natural partners to policymakers, as Victor was saying this morning. Because, and the Vice President of Spain mentioned, we have a key role to play in the development of a social economy in Spain, of an ethical finance in Spain, but also in Europe. And if we had more partners like the city of Barcelona, more Álvaro Porros that we could clone, we could accelerate this change in more places around Europe. The development of this economy at the service of people and planet. Cities that are willing to change the way they work with banks, that make ethical financiers their partners, their lenders, with whom they co-invest, with whom they share risk in the social economy and the development of even housing or other solutions that go beyond our typical finance role. We also need more partners like the Spanish government that make social economy a key pillar in the reconstruction of the economic post-pandemic, in a reconstruction that is sustainable in the true sense of the word, both economic, social, and environmental. We also have an important partner in the European Investment Fund, and I always underline this, which has supported us actively in the development of the activities of many FEBEA members, but through the unique complicity we've developed with them, it's also helped us to grow as a federation, to grow as a grouping, and we want to continue growing this partnership. But as it was said this morning, we also need to escalate our activity, make it visible, develop new instruments and solutions, and this we will only be able to do it in partnership. At the European level, there is a lot more to do. This is my job, my everyday job, and I can tell you the expectations are super high. There is a whole new plan to develop the social economy as a key sector in Europe, and this includes access to finance to this sector of the social economy, in which we are pinpointed as one of the responsible people to make it happen. We are working on them together with Social Economy Europe, and we will continue to focus our lobbying efforts on making sure that ethical finance remains a close partner to the EU in policy making, but also in making sure the social economy sector grows as much as ethical finance does. And this means we will have many, many opportunities. But these opportunities, we will be only able to develop them if we are also able to develop new partnerships to go beyond ourselves, beyond these rooms in which we talk to each other and we all agree. Somehow we will have to think of new partners that are out there and we are not reaching out today. We will have to continue working with public authorities more and more. I think Bernard highlighted it this morning very, very clearly. And this complicity, which I think still has a lot of room for development, I think can also boost this policy-making role that we can transform into money, that we can transform into projects, that we can transform in caring for people. We have to work more with public banks like the EIF and maybe others. And in looking beyond, I think we're going to have to go out of our comfort zone. I think we're going to have to start talking to other people like foundations, to other investors, to even some of the sleeping giants, even if it's not our specialty. We need to contaminate and support initiatives in other countries in Europe too, which are only starting now to develop their social economy sectors and the instruments to finance them. And if we look at it empirically, the social economy developed where it developed its own financing instruments that were intrinsically embedded in the social economy. And in places like Romania, in places like Portugal, in the Balkans, in many places in Central and Eastern Europe, I think we have a role to play in providing that know-how that we have accumulated during the years and making sure this is somehow transferable, copyable, replicable in their own context and with their own conditions. We will also have to work probably more amongst ourselves. And I think new opportunities are coming up when we're talking about co-housing and things like this. I think several FEBEA members will have to start looking at the same project and not just one of them in their specific own country or region. Because in a way, to be able to respond to all these expectations, we're going to have to reinvent ourselves probably once more. The challenges are enormous. Climate change, growing inequality, exponential development of a digital economy that is often leaving many people behind and doesn't have any kind of physical value. So in essence, going back to Buzz Lightyear, we will need to go to infinity and beyond. We as FEBEA are ready for this challenge, and I count on all of you to continue exchanging, being creative, going out of your own comfort zones, and going way beyond. Thank you. And I would like to give the word to Carlos Ascunce, who will address you in Spanish and do the other side of the conclusions. Thank you.
Gracias, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to the whole structure of FEBEA that makes this event possible and the tomorrow's assembly. First of all, I would like to convey on behalf of Finanzas Éticas and Share Banca Ética our joy to participate in this event, because we wanted to do it face to face, in person, because we understand that relationship among people is one of the main asset of these social and transformative organizations. And I think that through dialogue, through roundtables, we've seen that we really want to share tools that help us to face the needs and the problems that the current situation is posing. We said at the beginning, maybe we don't see this crisis as an opportunity, but rather as a space of responsibility, a possibility to build new tools that help change and transform dark times into something different. This is why we have been asking ourselves how ethical finance, together with credit, can work with social and solidarity economy, with public institutions, with alternative finance tools, with other stakeholders, to build a social economy which is inclusive and which is sustainable. And I think that by doing this, we put at the center of our talk the transformative capacity of ethical finance, which are in line with the values of social and solidarity economy and in line with proposals done by critical economies. FEBEA has been showing that we need to have alternative financial tools, and we need to generate alliances with other movements in order to face the challenges that the crisis is posing. And more than ever, we are probably before the biggest challenge we could imagine. And I mean that the sustainability of life is in danger, and is in danger for us and at risk for us and for future generations. Environmental sustainability, raising inequalities, raising of totalitarianism requires deep political, social, and cultural transformations. And FEBEA has presented some proposals that can help these transformations. The development of public policies to develop social economy, and that means a fairer economy which is at the service of the common good. The fostering of innovative social tools adjusted to the challenges we are facing, or to create alliances that make it possible to create new tools in order to perform this social and economic transformation. we are washing some practices, greenwashing some practices, and in front of that, FEBEA wants to build cultural, social, political practices that are transformative practices. And for FEBEA, it's very important also the participation of citizens. We want cooperative and transformative finances, which are determinant, very important for the construction of socio-economic ecosystems which are more democratic, inclusive, and feminist. Finances which have the goal of preserving life and preserving the present and the future life. Last year we couldn't celebrate the 20th anniversary of FEBEA, and tonight we're going to celebrate the 21st anniversary and the history, as well as the history and the trajectory of this much needed network. I think we can congratulate ourselves for the growth and development of FEBEA, and we have to commit with future and continue by continuing the building of tools that will transform the society in order to make our life sustainable. We're gonna toast physically lately, and we have to strengthen our engagement with ethical and transformative finances. Thank you very much.
Don't worry, no more Toy Story. I think it's the time to thank a number of people. So I would like to start. And if you don't mind me, I've been refraining myself all day to speak Spanish, so I will do it for one last time. Querríamos agradecer, y creo que empiezas tú.
I would like to thank, and you start, Jordi. We would like to thank the Barcelona City Council for all the work in recent weeks. We were able to host the event here. Also, thank you to Esther Vidal, Xavi Rubio, I don't know if he's here, Manuel Garcia, and the whole team of the direction, because they have been supporting us right from day one. Thank you very much to Barcelona City Council. I would like to thank Grupo Banda Ética and all the associations who have made possible this event. Ética SR and the sponsors of the event, and the members of FEBEA who have co-sponsored the event, Fania Bank, Banco Fabrizia, BAS, APS Bank. Thank you very much. And Ars Cooperativa. And very special thanks to the organizing committee, because the work done has been a good work. Time will tell, but from what we've seen today, I think everything went smoothly. And I would like to mention Sara Garcia, who's been in charge of communication, and it's worked brilliantly. Clara Solé and Simone Grillo. Sara is not here, Simone couldn't be here, but in a way they are here with us. And thank very much for their work from Banca Etica. And my Italian dream team, Gianluca Gasparini and Mr. Prospero. Aurora Prospero. And we had a big team, companions, the Crea Congresos Cooperative. We have here Marta. She's been here for the whole day. Thanks, Marta. Round of applause for her. And if you can call Anna just for a second. Anna, thank you. You have helped us a lot, and all organizations that are here, I would like to say that CREA Congresos is a very solid organization when it comes to organizing conferences. I just want you to know. I would like to thank the interpreters who have suffered my English spoken at a very fast pace, and the catering of Fundación Trabalho Foundation, and all the crew, the team that has been in charge of the streaming. Thanks a lot. I think Treson, the sound company, and Manu, and a productor who has been filming the event during the whole day. And that's all. Thank you very much for your presence.
At Palau de Requesens, which is in the center in the Barri Gothic. Don't miss it because it's going to be a great dinner. Thank you.